Good morning. This week's devotion is In Search of Justice. Have you ever noticed how many of the movies that there are that are coming out today where they're trying to prevent the end of the world and the end of the human race? Everything from superhero movies to science fiction, and there are even some that are loosely based on the Bible, very loosely based on the Bible. But we look around our nation and our world, and there seems to be a lot of hopelessness. People believe that we're just one step away from Armageddon. This is not a new thing. Most of the Old Testament prophets were saying that if you don't change your ways, you're going to be wiped out. It's usually for the same reasons: how we treat the poor and the vulnerable, and how corrupt people in power have become. One of the Old Testament lessons for this week comes from the prophet Amos. Listen to Amos chapter 5, verses 10 through 15, and see if it sounds like it's still relevant for our society today. They hate the one who reproves in the gate, and they abhor the one who speaks truth. Therefore, because you trample the poor and take from them levies of grain, you have built houses of hewn stone, but you shall not live in them. You have planted pleasant vineyards, but you shall not drink their wine. For I know how many are your transgressions and how great are your sins. You who afflict the righteous, who take a bribe and push aside the needy at the gate. Therefore the prudent will keep silent in such a time, for it is an evil time. Seek good and not evil, that you may live, and so that the Lord, the God of hosts, will be with you, just as you have said. Hate evil and love good, and establish justice at the gate. It may be that the Lord, the God of hosts, will be gracious to the remnants of Joseph. The truth seems to take quite a beating today, and cheating and stealing your way to the top is being celebrated. I know that many of the prudent are keeping silent because they don't want to be slandered and have their reputation falsely dragged through the mud. The answer for us is the same as it was for God's people in Amos's day. We need to seek good and work for justice. We need to be brave enough to stand up to those who think it's acceptable to lie to get what they want, and who line their pockets with no thought of the least of these. It isn't easy. I have been chewed out and called names just for gently saying, you might want to fact check that before you share it, because I don't think it's true. But Jesus never promised that following would be easy. When Jesus stood up for the poor and the least of these, those in power hated him and had him falsely accused and then put to death. Now, hopefully, we won't face that. But it is well past the time for us to stand up for the truth and for what is right, and say no to the lies and the greed and the prejudice and the hatred that is so rampant in our society today. In the Bible, devastation was only avoided when God's people stood up and admitted their sins and took care of the least of these. Let's try it today and see if working together for truth and justice, we can make things better for everyone. Have a blessed week.